Hello, welcome to the SBK Betting Podcast, where we have an extremely busy weekend ahead of us. We have so much good racing, Group 1 action, and SBK are sponsoring over in Ireland as well. So we will be focusing on Irish action as well as Newmarket, which is our big meeting featuring both the Cambridgeshire and Group 1s for 2-year-olds. The Cheveley Park Stakes is the race that we will be focusing on, but we could have picked anything. And with the podcast still in good form, we are happy to give you a couple more extra races today. Last week, Tom would have been delighted to see Small Fry win at 100-30, and Persica showed the talent he has to win again this season for me at 9-2. So we're going to cut to the chase. No small talk, I'm afraid, this week. We want just selections and a good reason for them. And we're going to start with the best of the graded races. That is the Cheveley Park Stakes. Now, we could have chosen from a whole heap of them in terms of the 2-year-old quality that's on offer. But I do think the Cheveley Park Stakes has got a little bit of X factor to it on Saturday, as we're seeing a couple of fillies that are putting their unbeaten record to the test. Babouche, who I made no qualms about my affection for her before she won last time, is here for Joe Lyons and Colin Keane. We got Lake Victoria for Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore. Those are the two unbeaten fillies. Daylight is over from France. Celandine is here for Ed Walker after her good win at York last time. And it's just a good looking field for a race which has really come out strongly over the years. Porta Fortuna turning into a really good Group 1 filly this year, and the likes of Alfrey, to name a few. So I'll start with Ross, because I know you do a lot of juvenile following. How impressed were you with Babouche and what she did to beat the boys in the Group 1 last time? And do you think that she can handle this next challenge, which is another unbeaten sort who's also got a Group 1 to her name?
Yeah, I was impressed with her last time, actually, Jess. She'd won over 6.5 furlongs on a penultimate start, and I just wondered last time whether she'd have the speed for 6 furlongs, but she was comfortably able to travel in behind Whistle Jacket and found plenty, and the proven stamina was always going to see her home. She's got a mark of 112, same as Lake Victoria. You could argue that maybe she's worth a bit more because she's achieved it against the Colts. But I would just caveat that with saying I'm not sure Whistle Jacket is the toughest nut to crack when it comes down to a fight. He looks a bit soft and a bit quirky to me. I don't hold him in high regard, and it's probably to the detriment of the Colts division that he's an even money favourite later on in the card for the Middle Park. I was really keen to be with her all week, and then I've just slightly jumped ship at the last minute with the forecast rain. I think this is going to be a bit of a stamina test, and you watch Babouche back, she's got a really nice action. Certainly a filly it's going to like good ground. I have no concerns over her stamina. I think she'll stay 7 furlongs. I think she'll be better over 7 furlongs, but I just wonder whether she'll handle the ground. Conversely, I've jumped ship to Lake Victoria, who I think will like slower ground. If you watch all her runs, she gets outpaced, and then she does some really good late work. She's won the Sweet Solera Stakes on the July track over 7 furlongs, got up late. Obviously, we're on the Rowley Mile now, but there is a dip and undulations, and she's proven she can handle that. She's out of a mare called Quiet Reflection, who was a very good horse for Carl Burke on testing ground. I think that will suit her well, this slower ground. And I just think she might outstay Babouche. For all that I think Babouche is the better filly, they're both rated 112. I think Babouche is the more talented filly over this trip if the ground was right, but just at the prices, slightly jumped ship at the last minute, and I'm with Lake Victoria. So I hope that's not going to bite me on my backside and be shown up for not being faithful to Babouche. But for me, it's Lake Victoria just because of the ground.
Yeah, interesting thoughts there. I suppose, Tom, look, it's not just about the two horses, Babouche and Lake Victoria. You've got, strong level of form coming from the French horse, who was third behind Whistle Jacket in the pre-morning. So the form ties in there slightly with Babouche. And you've also going back to the likes of Leo Varney, who looked to be one of the big talents of Wathnam Racing earlier on in the season. So do you think it's just a 2-horse race, or is there more that we should think about here?
I don't necessarily think it's a 2-horse race, no, but it is a cracking race, isn't it? This year's renewal of the Cheveley Park is full of really nice prospects, and I fully respect the two at the top of the market. Look, I've got nothing really against either of them. Babouche has been very impressive so far. She's beaten the boys twice, including the aforementioned Whistle Jacket that you spoke about there. She's proven at the trip. She seems to be a proper sprinter, which will help her for this race. And her full sibling won on soft twice. So if the ground does get really testing, then she should be proven on it. So I have nothing against her. She also has a rating of 112, which, if you look at the median rating over the last 10 years, you're required to win the Cheveley Park, it's only 113.4. So she's basically achieved what she has to achieve to win an average renewal of this race. So nothing against her. Also, nothing against Lake Victoria, who has the same official rating of 112, and she's looked very good so far as well. But I do think she's a miler plus prospect, and dropping down in trip, she may be okay with it, but I think she could get caught out by a little bit of speed, and that's why I would just prefer Babouche out of the top two in the market. That being said, given how open this race is, I don't really want a short price on any of them. I do think Babouche is the most logical winner, but I'll play Daylight each way. As you say, with a line through Whistle Jacket, she doesn't actually have much to find with Babouche. Yes, Whistle Jacket beat Daylight in the morning, and Babouche beat Whistle Jacket last time up. But I thought Daylight shaped like the best horse in the morning. She just lacked room at a crucial stage, and then forced her to basically finish third rather than contest the finish. Prior to that, she was very impressive in the Prix du Cabourg at Deauville back in July. She'll love the ground, and she's a decent price at around 7-1, 15-2, where you can have an each-way play. You could get your money back, a little bit of profit with a place, but also she's a win contender in here as well.
I do think I remember hearing the connections of Daylight say that they believed she was the best filly in Europe, 2-year-old wise, after that performance. So she's going to have to prove that. And a lot of confidence in the daughter of Earthlight. Yeah, as you say, a cracking renewal of the Cheveley Park Stakes. So make sure you focus on that 225 and keep an eye on the ground at Newmarket. It's lashing down. It's soft at the moment. Is it going to dry up? Is that going to affect the chances of any of these horses? We shall see. Okay, we're going to move on as the big handicap on the card is the Cambridgeshire over 1 mile 1 at 340. Tom, I'm going to come straight back to you first because this is a race where we need your stats, your insight, the draw. And I think that most people who've been punting the Cambridgeshire for long enough know that you've got to be drawn pretty high. And the betting is sort of reflects that as well, doesn't it? Because you've got the favourite who's been well gambled on over the last few weeks is This Song Is For You, who's 11-2. And he's drawn high in 17. You've got Roi de France, he's drawn 25, not far behind Godwinson and 27. So is it that horses drawn well are now suddenly closer up the top of the market, or is this reflecting actually horses that you fancied anyway that are just being positioned nicely too?
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. You definitely want to be drawn high. Horses towards the standside rail, huge advantage in this race over the years, and especially when the ground gets a little bit testing. So I would be writing off horses drawn 10 or lower, to be honest. It's just a bit of a coincidence that the favoured horses are actually drawn high anyway, the three that you've mentioned there. And again, much like in the Cheveley Park, I respect those at the top of the market. This Song's For You, true trainer Emmett Mullins. How can you write that horse off? Last time up, Godwinson was very impressive and still open to plenty of improvement. And Roi de France gets the £5 weight allowance. So there are clear angles as to why the market is trending towards those three. But much like the Cheveley Park, and probably more so actually, the Cambridgeshire is so wide open with so many places for each way punting. Why wouldn't you try find a price in a race like this? I'd feel more stupid if I bet a 6-1 favourite and they finish second in this race and I advise them to win than betting a 33-1 shot who finishes unplaced, because at least I'm trying to go and try and maximise my profit in a race like this. So I've got two selections, one at a medium price, one at a much bigger price. First up is Silver Sword, who's available around 14-1, I think, at the time of recording. He's also drawn well in stall 29. I have looked for those high stalls. This year, he's not had a very good campaign, but I'm pretty sure connections have just been trying to get that handicap mark down, waiting for a soft ground handicap later in the season. And here we are at the Cambridgeshire. He's down to a mark of 95. His last winning mark was 93. That came last year, so he's only £2 higher. And what happened was he ran in a listed race. He finished second. It came at this track on soft ground in October, and that really inflated his mark up to 102. And then he wasn't able to compete off that level. Now he's back down to a workable mark on his ideal ground at a track that he's proven at. I think Silver Sword's very interesting in this race. He's definitely a win contender. And the other horse isn't necessarily a win contender, but he's a horse that has just been targeted at the race, and that's Majestic, who's 33-1. I just thought that was a huge price for the winner of this race back in 2022. And he finished fourth last year when he got a bit of a troubled trip. He's drawn great in stall 36. Benoit de la Sayette, He's not had the career as a rider that we thought he may have had once he burst onto the scene. But his big successes have come in huge field handicaps. So I think his partnership on board Majestic is a positive. And Jack Shannon's obviously kept him aside for this race. The run a couple of weeks ago was a pipe opener for this. And I think Majestic could go well at a huge price as well. This is a great race, Jess.
Yeah, certainly is. Majestic was 25-1 when he won it a few years ago. He's only £2 higher, I think it is, than when he won all those years ago as well. And yeah, I back you with that. Benoit de La Sayette, who was meant to be the next big thing with John Gosden, who's not really using him a huge amount. But I do think Benoit is really still a good talent that should be followed. So a good pick up there. Okay, and Ross, like we've seen, these are the kind of races that you must get really stuck into. We've got some really good prices here. Draw or no draw? Do you keep that in mind with this race?
Well, yeah, Jess, I'm a big fan of stats, but I did have a look, and 8 of the last 10 have been drawn 20 or higher. So I've got 2 selections. The first, I think, is going to really like the ground. It's going to stay well, which I think is going to be important in this testing ground, but he is drawn on the wrong side, and that's Beneteau. He's in 6, but 2 of 10 have won it, so maybe 3 of 11 can win it. And the angle with him is ground and stamina. He's proven on soft ground. He actually won at Fontainebleau over this trip when trained in France. He was third on his penultimate start at Ascot on soft ground, stayed really well. And then last time up, he went to Ayr and he ran over 1 mile and 2 furlongs, stuck that trip really well, was only narrowly denied by an ever diminishing head at the death. That was off a marker 91, or both those runs off a marker 91. He's off 92 here. David O'Mara, well, we've said plenty of times, he's a dab hand in these big runner field handicaps. Thought Billy Loughnane was a fairly noticeable jockey booking and a decent price, around about 16-1. I thought he was interesting off for a horse that will definitely stay this trip. He's definitely going to cope with the soft ground. And I just think he might just be arriving here in good heart, which of course is important. And so for me, he was first on my list. And then one at a bigger price is Timothius Fox. I don't think Chester suited him last time. Quite a sharp track. He travelled really well. He is a strong travelling horse, but he just couldn't really quicken around the bend, and then actually didn't perhaps stay the 1 mile and 4.5 furlong trip. But he drops back no speed and trip here. He's got bits and bobs of form over 10 furlongs. He ran well at Windsor in a racing league meeting where he met a little bit of trouble in running, but was able to travel comfortably with the pace, stayed on late in the day. He's not proven on soft ground, but he's by Lupa de Vega, who definitely gets soft ground horses, and he has got form on the all-weather, which we would sort of see as being a slightly slower surface. So he's a bit of a flyer because he doesn't have any winning form at this trip, and he has largely raced it further than this. But he does travel strongly. He's definitely going to be staying on at the death. He is drawn on the right side. He's in stall 19. I just think if they go hard, he's able to travel through and then use that stamina, dropping back in trip. For me, I thought he was just an interesting one. William Carver taking £3 off. That's going to be no bad thing with a fairly heavy weight. And I just thought he was perhaps interesting at a decent price.
Right, we've looked at the Cambridgeshire and the Cheveley Park at Newmarket on Saturday. As I say, we've got the Middle Park, you've got the Royal Lodge, you've got so much good 2-year-old action, as well as that big handicap on Saturday. So keep an eye on that racing because I think it's going to be very informative going forward. But we're going to focus our attention onto Ireland on Sunday, which hosts a really attractive race card. We don't have declarations at present, but we are going to focus on the Irish Cesarewitch at 4:25 before the SBK sponsored Renaissance Stakes. So the Irish Cesarewitch, a race similar to the British one in that it's a real stamina test. And I think it was interesting to see, and I probably had known this for a while coming, that the anti-post favourite Bellocchio was non-runner because of the ground. It is good there, considering it's soft everywhere else in the UK. Ireland just haven't had the rain. But A Piece of Heaven, who was behind Bellocchio at Ascot earlier on in the season, is likely to head the betting, and Joseph O'Brien has got a good hand in this, Tom. Looking at this stage without declarations, is there something that you think could be poised for a big one?
I don't think the guys at SBK have done us much favours with these races, have they? I mean, what is this? These are super tough. We don't have decks, and you can honestly make a case for at least 10 of them in here. A Piece of Heaven should be the favourite, that's what I'll say. He's surely better than his mark, based on what we saw for former connections. And albeit he ran at Royal Ascot for Joseph O'Brien, it looks like Joseph's kind of given him a couple of runs before going towards a target. So I can certainly see A Piece of Heaven. Jesse Evans could run okay in this race. He was 4th last year. Maybe not the strongest of stayers over this distance on the flat, but still very capable. But I ended up siding with a long shot in Chally Shoot, who's I think as big as 33 to 1. I know, 33 to 1 shots. Look at me. He's got a good each way chance, surely. I mean, again, a huge amount of places, much like the Cambridgeshire that we've just talked about. This gelding's an improver. He does want a little bit of give underfoot. I think it may be good to soft come race time, which should be okay for him. It's probably not ideal, but it should be okay. And he improved nicely at 4, and 5. He caught my eye at Galway last month in a prep for this, and last time up he raced over hurdles. I'm happy to overlook that, Jess. You can't really use hurdling form when it comes to the Cesarewitch, Irish or English. So put a line through that. There's room for manoeuvre off this current mark on the flat, and he's just a huge price. So the risk reward factor means I have to play Chally Shoot each way.
I like that. I actually got the chance to see him in person when I went to interview Michael Halford and Tracy Collins, who said that they are genuinely going to campaign him over hurdles, and they thought that was a really good run for what they think that they can improve with him. But they think that he was unlucky to get into the big race at Irish Champions Weekend, where actually the horse that beat him was third behind a very well handicapped horse and Fighter. So I think that Chally Shoot might just get his opportunity to show what he can do. And overlooked from a betting perspective until you listen to this podcast and you make the most of the 25% boost which SBK are giving on this race. And with that in mind, there's also 25% boost on the Cambridgeshire as well. So some really good handicaps. I think that's what we want. SBK want us challenging us to make sure that we're trying to find these prices, and Ross Miller is the man for that. So Ross, what do you have for us? And I'm hoping it's at a price for the Irish Cesarewitch.
I've got two, Jess. As you say, it's really tough with so many to sort of trawl through it. It's definitely one to have a proper look at once the decks are out. But actually, I went for a bit of form from last year. Dawn Rising, 16 to 1. He was third last year, and I just felt the soft ground on that occasion perhaps just stretched his stamina, as it did when he finished fifth in the Queen Alexandra at Royal Ascot over 2 miles, 5.5 furlongs. Got to the front there, looked to be travelling really well, and then wilted fairly dramatically inside the closing stages. If the ground stays on the better side, I think he's got a decent chance of a mark of 102. He's a pound higher than last year, but for me, the ground is the key. If he gets nice ground, I think he's got a decent each-way chance. And the other one is actually the horse finished fourth last year, Jesse Evans. He's 25 to 1. Off a mark of 96 last year, he's off 99 now. But again, I just felt that the soft ground taxed his stamina. All of this horse's best form is on whether over hurdles and indeed fences is on better ground, as on the flat. He arrives here in good form. He actually won a beginner's chase at Galway on his latest start. The form of that, for what it's worth, has been boosted. The runner-ups come out and run well since. They're proven on the track. They're proven over the trip. I think they can do better if they get better ground. And with Jesse Evans, I wouldn't be at all surprised if they book a decent claimer to perhaps take £5 off his back.
Okay, and I touched upon the fact that SBK are sponsoring at the Curragh on Sunday, and that is in the Renaissance Stakes, the 6 furlong sprint. And with that in mind, to celebrate the sponsorship, there is a 50% boost on this race. So make sure you get involved with this. The Renaissance Stakes is a race where there is a good offering from UK-based trainers, because we know that when the Irish sprinters take on the British trained horses, it normally sides in the British camp, and Spycatcher for Carl Burke is over. You've got Go Bears Go, who's now with Dave Lochnan. He's had a very interesting season all over the place, but it looks like there won't be a huge amount of, I suppose, depth, Tom, from the Irish contingent. I think that it's interesting how Spycatcher might get on. He is the horse that is officially the top rated here.
Yeah, he's the most intriguing runner in the field. There's no doubt about it. I haven't seen declarations. I don't think we have them at the time of recording, and obviously no draw. So this is tough to assess. I think high draws at the Curragh is so important. So I would be looking and I'm waiting to see what the draw says. But hopefully there's a nice draw for Moss Tucker if he's in the field, because I think this horse is very, very capable of winning the race. Ken Condon's run is just a beast on his day, but he does need conditions. He won the Group 1 Flying 5 last year. He was very good that day and subsequently beat Go Atletico in the Group 3 Phoenix. Now, Go Atletico is likely to run in this race as well, so I fancy Moss Tucker to confirm the form there. He's barely got his ground this year. He probably won't get his ideal ground in the Renaissance either, but if there is a bit of give underfoot, then I fancy Moss Tucker to go close. But no strong fancies at this stage until we find out the draw.
Yeah, draw will come with declarations, which is tomorrow. I suppose there is a bit of tentativeness for you, Ross, as well. A race where you've got sort of patchy form for some of these sprinters, but there are horses that are really coming back from Group 1 company into Group 3 companies, so that might just see them have a bit of an edge.
This is actually a race, Jess, where I'm completely ignored the thought of any draw. And you sort of point about horses dropping down. My selection actually is a horse that's really going up in grade. My mate Alfie, he has tried group races before and he's run credibly without running brilliantly, but he ran really well over course and distance in a handicap last time off a mark of 107. He won with some degree in hand. If you get similar conditions here, we talk plenty that the gap between good handicap contests and these lower grade group races, or even group ones actually with the sprinters, can be quite a small margin. I think with sprinters, if you can find one that's in form, they're worth sticking with, and he's certainly in form. It's up to a mark of 112 now. He's actually highest rated in this contest. He's achieved that in handicap, so of course he's going to have to go again. But we know he likes the track, know he likes the ground. He's in good form, and as you said, a few of these have got plenty of questions to answer. Maybe dropping down in grade or spark some of them back into life. But I wanted to stick with one that I know is in good heart. So my thought at the moment would be my mate Alfie.
Okay, we have gone through all of our main races this weekend. The Cheveley Park, the Cambridgeshire, the Irish Cesarewitch, the Renaissance Stakes. We've got something for everyone, but there is so much racing this weekend. And as I touched upon, really good action from Newmarket outside of the racing that we've selected. So Tom, you've been in good form with your sections. We're just doing naps today. What have you got? And it potentially might come from one of the lesser tracks, because that served you well, having gone to Chester. Without Chester being on this weekend, what have you got from maybe outside of the obvious?
Yeah, I'm gutted Chester's not on. We've had great success there over the last few weeks. Just to toot my own horn for a second, 5 of the last 6 winning naps have won for me, so we're in great form. Hopefully that continues. It feels like there was a stretch in midsummer where I couldn't buy one, so it's good to end the flat season this way. Obviously jump season, Ross will be happy about this, starts in just 2 weeks really with Chepstow. So hopefully we continue the streak, and I am going to a lesser venue, and that is Ripon for the 135, which is the opening novice event, and I like Dothan. Or Dothan. I don't know what price he's going to be. I think he's going to be short enough because it's not the best of races, but hopefully he'll get your day off to the perfect start. Obviously, it's one of the first races on Saturday, and it's always good to start with a winner. He's only run once. He's a strong-looking colt, and he ran at Chester on debut. He finished 4th that day. It was on heavy ground over the 6 furlongs. He didn't break overly well, but he wasn't terrible from the start, but it meant that he raced in the second half of the field in the early portion of the race. And then unfortunately for him, the 3 horses that were directly in front of him all started floundering as they were coming around the turn. And it just meant that Dothan had to go extremely wide to make up ground. And he did so really impressively for a first-time starter. He picked up nice and willingly, and it looked like he was going to make a run. But on the heavy ground at Chester, first up, he wasn't able to sustain the effort, which eventually led to him finishing quite a distant 4th at the line. But it was a pretty good race. The winner was Bob Marley, I think, and he's 2 from 2 so far. The runner-up for George Bowie came back and won today, actually, on Thursday at Pontefract. So the form's worked out well. As I say, this isn't the best of races. Hopefully he can get off the mark for Ed Bethel. And I did a bit of a stat attack with this, which I know you'll love, Jess. And I looked on Racing Post where I see the stats. And initially I saw a stat for Ed Bethel at Chester and I thought, oh my God, this is incredible. It's like 44%. I'm definitely going to be using this. And unfortunately, I searched for 3-year-olds, not 2-year-olds, which kind of ruins the stat attack a touch. But Ed is still 24% with all of his runners at Ripon in the past. And I think that's a big positive for Dothan, who, providing he handles the undulation at the Garden racetrack, I think he'll be winning the opener.
Okay, very good case there for your selection at Ripon. So thank you for that. Let's hope this winning streak continues for Tom, who's been in excellent form, as you say. Now, Ross, I will have to admit, I went jump racing this week and it was at Warwick and it got me slightly more into the mood of it all. I'm just coming around to terms of it. The weather is painting a bit of a picture that we're in the beginning of the National Hunt season. So I'm going to let you and allow you to give us a National Hunt tip.
Yeah, jumps is back, Jess. I actually got videos of Roger schooling over fences for the first time this morning, so that's really got me focused on the jumping game. And my nap does come from Market Raising in the 5:10 in the form of Jet Plane for trainer Dan Skelton. He was perhaps a bit disappointing for large parts of last season over fences, but he bounced back to form, winning at Sandown. Followed that up with an absolute rout at this track, Market Raising over 2 miles, 3.5 furlongs. Got a fair hike in the weights. He then went to Ayr for that Scottish national meeting, and he ran poorly, but that run did only come 9 days after that market raise and a demolition job. So I could put a line through that quite comfortably. He's got good form at market raise, and as well as that win, he's hit the frame a couple of times. He stays really well, but crucially, he's got a really good record when fresh, when coming off layoffs of more than 140 days, 2 wins and a placed effort. Dan Skelton, just seen a couple of interviews this week where he looks like a real man on a mission. He's spoken about having the jumps horses out earlier, trying to eke every penny out as he tries to get that elusive first trainers title. I think he's really placing his horses well. Got a 21% strike rate at the moment. Horses running well. Jet Plane returns off a career high mark, but there's a good few in here against him that perhaps aren't what they were. And I think Jet Plane could go on a little bit further this season. So he's the selection in the 5-10.
Okay, brilliant. Well, my selection, I'm going to give you my one only selection is a nap, and it's for Curragh in the Cambridgeshire. This is for Dermot Weld. I tried my best to find how many times Dermot Weld has brought over horses for the English Cambridgeshire. I'm sure he has, and I couldn't find anything obvious where it stands, but he brings his Irish Cambridgeshire winner, Curragh, over. This horse had won the Irish Cambridgeshire last year in good fashion. He ran a pretty luckless 4th in the Irish Cambridgeshire only a couple of weeks ago behind the Wigmore Street. He was given a brilliant ride by Ryan Moore and came from the clouds. Now, Curragh had a real trouble passage and running, and he would have been a lot closer hadn't he been on the wrong side of the track and had a few issues getting through. Now, he's only put up £1. He's a horse that's been running well in and around this level for some time, albeit the last time he won was in the Irish Cambridgeshire last year. So he's just been probably finding it a little bit tough, but I would say that he's been drawn well. But the biggest eye catcher is that the jockey booking of Ryan Moore on this horse is a sensational book for Dermot Well. You don't see that happen that often, and I like his chances in a very competitive looking Cambridgeshire. So that's to add to the selections that Ross and Tom has given you. So there it is, a big weekend of following both SBK sponsored races at the Curragh on Sunday, and a lot of selections from the team here. So with that in mind, we are still giving out for new SBK users £40 in free bets when you sign up and bet £10 for the first time. Make sure to head to SBK. Lots of other offers and promotions throughout the weekend. And don't forget the price boost, 25% boost on the Cambridgeshire, a 25% boost on the Irish Cesarewitch, and a 50% boost on the Renaissance Stakes. So a lot to play for and a lot to play on this weekend. So I hope you have a great one, and we'll see you next week.